can you mix comedy and child sexual abuse to open the conversation a little wider? This comedian thinks that you can. Let's see what he's got to say.
If we keep child sexual abuse as only something we can talk about seriously, we're never going to talk about it. My name's Johnny Pelham, and I'm a stand-up comedian. Hello, Apollo! How are we doing? We well? My comedy's personal, political, and no topic is off limits. I actually had sex for the first time when I was 8 with a man who was acting very immorally. I'm also a child sexual abuse survivor, and in 2019 I wrote a comedy show about my experiences. Everyone's bragging about how young they had sex on Freshers' Week. One guy was like, I had sex for the first time when I was 15. Another guy, that's nothing. I had sex for the first time when I was 14. And I really remember thinking, I've got an ace in the deck here.
I just don't know whether I like it. I just don't know whether I like... I've got some resistance to those jokes.
The show really connected with people, and I was shocked by how many people got in touch with me to talk about their own personal experience of childhood sexual abuse. I was stunned to hear how many people suffer in silence, particularly when I know it was only when I started talking about it that I started healing. I want to look at why so many children continue to be abused, how we can make it easier to talk about, and what we can do to try and stop it.
Okay.
Hey, Johnny. I've never thought about the subject of child sexual abuse finding a place in comedy, but you found it and managed it in such a cool way. Hey, Johnny. Just watch you on Dave. So this one's from Carol. Hi. You have made my 8-year-old self feel acknowledged and empowered. Hi. I watched you on Live at the Apollo the other night and wanted to thank you. So after Live at the Apollo, I got these messages, and on the one hand, it was brilliant. Made me feel great that I'd been able to help. And I also realised it was a bit freaky, because you suddenly realise, you know, shit, I've talked about being a victim of childhood sexual abuse publicly, and the fear of that sort of defining who I am, really, you know, because it's quite a narrow space to inhabit. I guess that's why I wanted to do this doc, to go talk to someone else who'd had a similar experience to me, who's talked about it publicly, to see how they'd managed to own their survivorhood without being sort of defined by it.
So he's obviously got good intentions, right? He's obviously written his comedy show, or his style of comedy, or what he talks about in his comedy to help people, and it probably helps him in turn. My first question really is, should we criticize, right, for the people that don't like the jokes that he said at the start of this video, for the people who don't think comedy and child sexual abuse should be mixed and it's not a way to widen the conversation, can we really criticize him because he's doing good? Do you think that there will be some people that find those jokes offensive and that will do them some bad? I suppose if I was to go and watch his comedy show, I would not be laughing at those jokes. But why is that, I'm thinking in my head? Because he's talking about his own story, trying to make light out of it. He was only talking like from he wasn't talking about other people's experience of sexual abuse. It was only his. So he has a right to do what... Sorry. Mirror's just fallen down. He has a right to do what he wants with his story. And he's obviously receiving so many messages from people saying that what he's doing has helped them in some way. So is it a case of just trying to get as many angles on the subject as possible? And if comedy is one of those things and it's going to bring good to people's lives, then maybe we should encourage it. Let's keep going.
Hi, mate.
Hey, how you doing?
I'm good. Good to meet you, Ian.
Yeah, you too, mate.
Ian is a sexual abuse survivor. He first came forward in the 1990s about the abuse he suffered at the hands of his football coach, Barry Burnell. And he has gone on to found an organisation that helps other victims speak out within football. On average, it takes people 22 years from the time their abusers stop to tell anyone. I want to talk to Ian about why it is such a difficult conversation to have and how we can empower people to talk about it sooner. So yeah, I guess let's dive in. Do you mind talking a bit about what happened to you as a child?
No, not at all.
So, how old were you when it began?
I was sort of 9, 10 years of age, and it went on for about 3.5 years-ish, and that was pretty much every weekend, every school holiday. It was all with the same abuser, my football coach.
And, I mean, the person, I'm just going to tell you this to try and, like, we're on the same page. The person who abused me would have, like, full sex. Was that the same with you?
Yes, absolutely. It was the full range of abuse, from masturbation, oral sex, and buggery. And even on some occasions with another boy in the bed at the same time.
I was about 8 when it happened to me, and I got very angry, and then I sort of started messing around at school, and apparently, I don't remember doing this, I used to bang my head against the door and say that I wanted to kill myself. And then I just sort of stopped, I think, and I got very numb, and that's my strategy, really, was just to dissociate. Because, you know, you can't run, you can't fight, so you're just going to freeze. I was wondering how it impacted on you as a sort of child.
I remember going home the first time it happened and going into my bedroom and having these very intrusive thoughts of all the images of what had actually happened to me. And I remember focusing on a little rust spot on my radiator in my bedroom. And I just stared at it all night, until eventually I went to sleep. And I've said in the past that me and that rust spot became very good friends. I think I spent a long time in my life trying to suppress those thoughts because of the confusion, the guilt, the shame, and all the other emotions that go with it.
It took me 17 years to talk to someone about my childhood abuse. I know on average it takes 22 years. And I'm just wondering why you think it is such a difficult thing to talk about and why so many people keep it secret.
I think because in the majority there's a misconception about who it is who abusers are. And I think that the majority of abusers know very well the people they're abusing and vice versa. My abuser absolutely ingratiated himself into my family, would come round for meals, turn up. It makes it so much more difficult to say anything.
I knew the person who abused me well. You know, the reality was it was someone I knew, someone I respected, someone I quite liked. Then it makes it so much more difficult to tell anyone because there's a relation, he's got a relationship with other people in your world and you're sort of chucking a grenade into your life if you mention it. Who was and how old were you when you first told someone about the abuse?
I was 26 years of age and the first person I spoke to about it was my partner. We'd start to have a relationship and we'd had intimacy problems. It was probably the most difficult thing I've ever had to say.
Just a quick stop there. This is a great conversation between these two people. I know it's not relating it to the initial reason for this video, which is the comedy aspect and how comedy can be used to discuss this subject, but they're actually having a really interesting conversation. This guy is asking excellent questions and they're answering them truthfully and in a way that they're actually trying to share each other's experience and learn from each other. I really like it.
I remember thinking, what will she think? Will she believe me?
And how was she?
She was fantastic.
Was she good?
She was absolutely amazing. But also, once I'd taken that leap of faith, I just remember feeling how much better I felt. Just by getting it off my chest.
Well, I started randomly telling people at parties when I was pissed.
Wow.
And inappropriately telling people. And I think now I understand that as I wanted to talk to someone, but I didn't want to talk to anyone who I knew because I didn't want them to be weird around me.
Sure.
So I just fucking told randomers.
I used to take on the responsibility of thinking, making people feel this way. Yeah. I mean, I used to say to people, if you're having a party and you want to get rid of people at the end of the room, give us a ring. Give us a ring. I'll clear your house in 30 seconds. I'll just come in and start talking about me abuse and they're gone. You know, it's that awkward. And I used to apologise for it. But more recently, I think I've learned to accept that actually it's other people's awkwardness. It's their narrative, not mine. And I think that's one of the great things I think that you're doing with your stand-up. By allowing people to laugh and see the funny side, the jokes in this stuff, or the ridiculousness in some of this stuff. Give people permission not to be awkward.
When I did...
I just don't know how I feel about it. I just don't know how I feel about it. What is comedy? Comedy is making fun of something. I mean, I have heard the opinion about... I have heard people say that comedy is a fantastic tool to make light of a situation. I don't think I'm thinking in my head right now that we shouldn't try... There's no light to be made from this situation. I've heard that comedy is a way to talk about a subject that usually it would be so uncomfortable or so awkward to talk about. So in this example, yeah, maybe then that is useful. Comedy could be used to discuss a subject with an audience that usually it would just be so awkward and uncomfortable, so uncomfortable that the audience wouldn't come to a discussion like that. But when it's comedy, you've got a theatre packed full of people coming to listen to a subject that normally they wouldn't listen to. That's got to be a plus, right? I just don't know about laughing about it. I just don't know how I feel about laughing about it. Because is it do you think that it's easier to do you think that it's okay because this comedian that's doing this is talking about his own experience and he's a survivor of this type of experience? I am going to say if it was a comedian that had no association or no experience himself or herself with the experience, that would not be okay to make comedy out of it. I kind of feel like I need to go and see this guy's show. I feel like I kind of need to go and see this guy's show and really see it for real and see what I think.
Apollo, I wanted someone to be able to turn around to someone and go, oh, that happened to me. Because at the moment it feels like the only place we have in our society to talk about this issue is in this serious space.
About a year ago, I started owning this part of my life. I started talking about it on stage, and it meant I'd have to make some changes, you know, like I'd have to tell my parents, because they shouldn't find out by turning on Live at the Apollo. Jesus, or reading a review in the Radio Times. Fucked as a boy, surprisingly upbeat.
No. I just don't like it. I just don't like it. Okay, let's continue.
What's great about comedy is if you can make people laugh about it, you can move the conversation slightly, and it stops being the, piano music, someone crying, talking to a therapist. It moves it into a pub, or it moves it into some people's lounge, and it just allows that conversation to begin in a different space. Because I think if we keep child sexual abuse as only something we can talk about seriously, with serious people talking about trauma in serious ways, we're never going to talk about it.
That's a good point.
1 in 6 children have had some form of contact or non-contact childhood sexual abuse. And yet, even though there are millions of us, the experience still feels incredibly lonely. If we do want to get serious about stopping childhood sexual abuse, we need to find new ways to talk about it.
I found the Me Too movement so inspiring, and I really think we could have something similar around child sexual abuse, because there are millions upon millions of people, and if all of them would just be able to find a way to go online and say Me Too without having to disclose personally the trauma of that abuse, I think it would shock people, and I think it would genuinely transform how we view ourselves as a society.
That's
just
facts.
To see the scale very explicitly and very clearly and go,
yeah.
Fuck me, this is an issue that I don't have to deal with, because I personally know 5, 10, 15, 20 people myself who've been sexually abused as children.
That's a great point.
If we can give people permission to be able to say, me too, that's the thing that's going to allow the freer conversations that we're looking to have and take it out of the awkward, and get comfortable with the uncomfortable. That's what it's about.
Really positive conversation with Ian. And it's just great to be talking about these things, you know, because 1,000 children are sexually abused every day in this country. There is a sort of silent crisis happening. And if we want to eradicate it, if we want to protect the next generation, we need to begin to have these conversations. Firstly, a society that can talk openly about this sort of stuff would fucking terrify abusers. And secondly, it's so helpful for survivors to see, to be represented, and to see that, you know, they don't have to be defined by this. It is possible to go on and still live a really rich, meaningful, happy life. So yeah, really great, really positive conversation. Loved it.
Amazing. Okay. So, I like him. I think he's got good intentions. I think he's on a mission. He's trying to put his spin on things. I can't slate him. I'm always going on about trying to find different ways of talking about this on my social media. I'm always talking about it. Can we talk about it from this angle? Can we talk about it from this angle? Can we talk about it from this approach? Can we talk about it from this approach? And he's just doing that. He's got a way of talking about it. And it's not only for himself to deal with the experience, even though I'm sure he gets a lot of that from it. He's doing it because he wants to change the game. He wants to try something new, and he believes that this is a great way to do it. Now, it's not for everyone. I don't think it's for me. I would only go and see his show because I'm curious, not because I would be a fan of that style of comedy, the subject matter of that comedy. So he's just doing his thing. How can I criticize him? I don't think I can. The subject, this situation is so vast. You know, he said 1,000 children are abused every day in the UK. He said 1 in 6 children have some form of abuse in their childhood. I mean, we know the scale of the problem is huge, and I'm a firm believer of that we need people coming at it from all angles. So if a survivor wants to go down this route, and he sees that he's receiving more messages of inspiration, strength, and courage than of complaint, then I'm saying that good on him, and I wish him all the success.